Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. Today is my Monday. It's Wednesday for the rest of the world. But isn't that just the nature of our subjective experience, right? And this is true all the time. I always used to wonder about that, like, thinking about people who go to work on like Sunday evening. When most of the world, like my whole experience Sunday evening was, either like coming home from like a weekend away and knowing you got to go back to work the next day, or just even that vibe though of just like, even if you didn't go away, just like feeling like, okay, the weekend is winding down. I mean, of course there were times in my life where I went out and partied on Sunday night, but for the most part, it was that sort of feeling that like, okay, something's coming to an end. It's time to sort of chill. And imagine if that was when you're going to work. I often think of like even like policemen and ambulance drivers, going to work on Sunday night. It's like there's no difference for them on Sunday night than there would be for me on like a Tuesday afternoon or something like that, right? And again, that's the subjective nature of what we're doing here, right? And so, speaking of which, I want to remind you or let you know again, I just sent out an email to all of you who are on my group, who are on my email list. And by the way, anyone who's listening to this or watching this and is not on my email group, on my email list rather, please just let me know. I can add you very, very simply. And every day I send out an email with the link to this content. But I also, there's also times where I make announcements just via email without a video in it. So if you'd like to be involved with getting some of those, then please just shoot, either reply to wherever you're watching this or send me an email at art@artburnscoaching.com. Okay. And I will add you to the email list so you won't miss any announcements. Okay. And one such announcement that I just sent out this morning was about the Saturday workshop that's coming up this weekend. Okay. Today's Wednesday, so in just 2-3 days, doing the first of my 12 weeks of winter workshop series. Okay, for every weekend in the winter time when really we're looking for excuses to stay in, right? Aren't we? I mean, of course, if you go skiing or something like that, that might be different. And of course, there's nothing wrong with going out and playing in the snow, which is exactly why I've made this either late morning or like early afternoon, depending on your time zone. So you can come inside, make a hot cocoa or make a cup of tea and enjoy, a 90 to 120 minute workshop with me. We're going to do meditations in these workshops. I'll do a guided meditation for probably about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending. And then we're going to do a workshop of like really like, roll up the sleeves, and pen and paper and kind of, really go through some stuff that's really beneficial. Practices and various, different techniques of practice and different sort of ways in which you can practice, and which I guess is kind of the same thing. Pardon my redundancy. I work in the Department of Redundancy department, but anyway, the idea though is that I'm delivering value, right? It's not just, sitting and listening to me talk for a couple hours. There's actually going to be a lot of like instruction, and I'm going to follow up with written instructions where applicable, where necessary, where they exist, because I do have a whole library of stuff that I'm going to share it. I want to share with all of you. Now, it's a free workshop series, okay? Free. I will accept donations, but it's free, okay? So don't feel like you have to pay anything. Okay, there's just going to be, I'm basically going to pass around the hat, and it's going to be the hat of my wife's Venmo account. So I won't even know who is paying and who's not. Okay, that's how not about the money it is. Okay. And so this Saturday, what we're going to start with is journaling. Okay, because journaling last week or 2 weeks ago when I gave my New Year's Day for New Year's resolutions workshop, there was like so many people, when I mentioned journaling, so many people were like, I want to get into journaling. I've always wanted to. This seems so easy. And so I'm going to do a whole workshop just on journaling. Okay. And we're going to talk about, again, techniques of journaling, different sort of focuses of journaling, right? So like, some people might be journaling to relieve stress, whereas other people might be journaling to like sort of work through a difficulty in their life. Another person might be journaling to try to figure out a romantic problem that they're going through, right? The point is that journaling is like a multi-tool. It can work in so many different ways. And I'm going to cover how those ways work and the different techniques, the different sort of time levels and investments and all kinds of stuff. So that's going to be a free workshop this Saturday, okay? I'm going to put the link in the description to sign up for, well, you register once and then you can attend any one of the workshops you want to for the whole 12 weeks, okay? And so that's all in the workshop, in the description below. And so in today's first segment, I want to talk about something that's really been on my mind all week. And it's on my mind predominantly because I'm working with a specific couple of clients here who are, going through some difficulty. Let's just put it that way. Okay. It's a married couple, right? And we've all been there, right? We've all been in situations, in romantic situations, friendship relationships, work relationships, parenting relationships, whether as the child or the parent. We've all been in various forms of relationships that have had rough spots and difficulties, right? And that's nothing new. And if anybody expects that to change anytime soon, well, you're going to spend a long time waiting, I think, right? Like a really long time waiting, like you're going to do nothing but wait. Because it's the nature of relationships to sometimes be rocky. And the reason for that is because, again, as I mentioned before, the subjective nature of our experience, right? Like there is no, like when we're in a relationship, right? That's just two people going through, each of them going through their own subjective moment by moment experience and trying to somehow dovetail those together with one another. I mean, come on, folks. If we don't expect something rocky to come out of that, then I don't know when we do expect something rocky to happen, right? And so a lot of times when people look at, relationships, and again, most of the time when we think about relationships, we go to like marriage or romance relationships, right? But this is true in any relationships, right? That there's... most of the time when we think about a relationship that is suffering, right, what we do is we tend to like focus on sort of the granular levels at which we see the evidence of the suffering, right? So for a relationship, a marriage relationship, for instance, that would look like, looking at the specific fights that we have, right, or the specific arguments or whatever the conflict might be, right? And so, I actually, with this particular people that I'm working with, we actually started talking about the John Gottman's work, right? John Gottman is a very, very famous, world-renowned couples therapist, and he's renowned for being able to, with 90% accuracy, being able to tell if a given couple is going to be married within the next, or divorced within the next 10 years with 90% accuracy. And he can tell this after just a 10-minute conversation with the two people. Urban legend says that John doesn't get, or Dr. Gottman doesn't get invited to too many dinner parties these days. Half the people at the dinner party realize they're going to be divorced in 10 years, right? And so Dr. Gottman came up, and I studied Dr. Gottman's work in my mindfulness training because he deals with something I'm going to tell you in just a second, right? But he's come up with, pardon me, a sort of concept of what he calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right, of marriage, right? And so basically these 4, sort of I call them pillars, but what's the opposite of a pillar, right? These 4 pitfalls is really what it is, are the signifiers then a marriage is heading for divorce, right? And again, this is a guy who has 90% accuracy in determining such things. So the 4 horsemen, or the 4 pitfalls that I'm talking about, are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, which is just like, I'm not talking about this, changing the subject, deflecting, moving away, changing the, blaming you for something instead, right? The other 3 are pretty self-explanatory. So the idea here is then, right? So when we're talking about a relationship, right, we can say that, let's talk about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. But even that is looking at what is negative about a relationship. And even that process is already, in my opinion, a little off on the wrong foot, right? By the way, I'm really trying to I'm trying to say the word right less. So bear with me, please. But the idea then, though, is, well, if we're talking about a relationship, then we could look at what's wrong with the relationship, but we could also look at not only what is right within the relationship, but instead of looking at what's wrong and trying to remove that, we can look at what does a relationship need and how do I add that, right? And so let me talk to you about what I mean by that, right? So every relationship in the entire world, like again, whether it's a working relationship, a romantic relationship, a sibling relationship, a friendly relationship, a romantic relationship, a parent-child relationship, an employer relationship, any relationship, the health and well-being of that relationship is going to be commensurate with the degree at which that relationship includes a couple of key ingredients, or what I like to call a couple of key nutrients. And honestly, the 2 nutrients that are absolutely vital are empathy and compassion. The ones that are sort of second wave that are also very, very helpful: gratitude, kindness, acceptance, which could also be called forgiveness, right? Because forgiveness is nothing more than ultimate acceptance. So those are the 5. Art Burns has 5 horsemen of redemption, right? To battle John Gottman's 5 horsemen of the apocalypse. And who do you think's going to win? It's 5-on-4. Come on, I'm stacking the deck here for you, folks. I'm trying. But the idea here is, and this is really, I've been thinking about this all week, because again, when I work with people, I really do. I mean, I hold it tight. I hold it close, and I really do. Live it with you all. But anyway, So I was thinking about it in the context of health in an organism, right? Because what is a relationship more than just an organism, right? And what is an organism except a body that is a collection of organs? What is an organ except an organized group of cells, right? So it's all right down to the cellular level, right? Everything can come back down to that sort of life basic level, okay? And so the reason I bring that up is I remember seeing, I think there was a movie made a number of years ago, 10, maybe even 15 years ago. And if I'm not mistaken, the movie was called Super Size Me, right? Which the whole premise of the movie was that this guy, I don't remember his name, he decided that I think he did it for a year. I'm not sure about that, but for a period of time, he was going to do nothing. He was going to eat nothing, consume nothing but fast food. And I think it might have even been exclusively McDonald's, right? So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, fast food, right? And after just a shorter period of time than what he ultimately said he was going to do, he started showing very significant signs of pathology in his body, right? He had, pardon me, he had high blood pressure. He was putting on weight. He was putting on a lot of fat. He had cholesterol issues. He had digestive issues. His blood sugar levels were all off, right? But here's the thing, right? We all know that there are people who live like that for decades, right? Because of course you can always, take medication for diabetes and blood pressure and cholesterol and all the different things, right? And so you can maintain your organism, or maintain a minimum level of function in your organism so that you could last, a whole lifetime living that way. Now, that lifetime is going to be shorter than most other lifetimes, the lifetimes of people who eat broccoli and leafy green vegetables and colorful vegetables and eat grains and protein and really take care of themselves and exercise and sleep and all that kind of stuff, right? But there's a wide gulf in between the two extremes, right? And at any point, somebody could be seen as, if not healthy, functional, right? I mean, maybe not just eating McDonald's every meal, but certainly having an unhealthy diet is not a death sentence. But here's the thing, like somebody who lives that way at 75 years old, that's, you're going to be, if you make it that long, before you start getting some diseases that cannot really be treated in the same way. But even treating the diseases, I mean, it's not like you have a fulfilling, a well and healthy lifestyle at 75 years old, right? Whereas you look at the other extreme is Mick Jagger. I mean, that guy's over 75 years old and he's doing world tours and dancing for 3 hours a night on stage, I mean, so that's, so again, it's not that, it's not that now, I'm sorry, let me back up for a second. There are millions and millions and millions of people who eat some McDonald's and are in fact very healthy, right? It's a question of, not necessarily removing McDonald's from your life, but making sure that you have certain nutrients that your body needs, which McDonald's does not provide. So essentially, how do we add these nutrients into a relationship? Well, it comes down to a very simple prospect, right? Or a very simple concept that in any given moment, we have the choice where we can either choose to pay attention to what's bothering us about a relationship, paying attention to the dishes that aren't clean, or the laundry that isn't folded, or the money that was spent, or the dinner that was burned, or whatever it is, right? We could pay attention to those negative things, or we could choose to focus our attention on the empathy and the compassion, right? Which is to say, focus our attention on how our partner is feeling and wishing for the best in that partner and really paying attention to all those things that we love about our partner. Right? So in any given moment, I might say that, my wife, she didn't, she overslept. And so I had to make the kids breakfast on my day off. Right. So I could focus on that, or I could focus on the fact that, well, for the rest of the day off, I don't have to worry about my children because my wife is here. Right? And that can balance things so that we can open ourselves to the kindness, the compassion, the empathy, the gratitude, and the acceptance that leads to forgiveness. And if we can inject those 5 nutrients into our relationships on a regular basis, then just like taking vitamins and eating vegetables and eating whole grains and eating clean protein and eating low fat and all of these things are going to increase our physical well-being, right? So by adding these nutrients into our relationship, we increase the well-being of our relationship. If you want to know how, hit me up, okay? There's going to be also a link to schedule your free 45-minute coaching session with me. All right, everybody, I'll be back in segment number 2 in just a few moments. That we're going to talk about how, oh gosh, this is going to be kind of a difficult one, about how life is not to be fought with. And that doesn't seem to be true for most of us. So I'll be right back with that. There, welcome back to the second segment of today's episode. So in the last segment, I talked about how, relationships, need nourishment, just like our bodies need nourishment, right? And, this nourishment kind of starts with looking at our relationship to the world, right? I mean, in our relationship to the world around us, which again is a very subjective relationship that we have. Your relationship to the world could be very, very, very different from my relationship to the world. And this has everything to do with how we're brought up, with whatever trauma we might have experienced, with what teachers we had, what coaches we had, the geographic and cultural area in which we grew up. It all comes in to impact how it is that you relate to the world around you. And because the world around you is filled with other people, interpersonal relationships are just about all of it. It's just about everything. And so for so many years in my life, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. In fact, I know I'm not the only one because I've talked to other people like me, but I'm sure there's some people listening to me even right now for whom, like me, life seemed to be like a constant battle. Have you ever had that feeling? That you're just feeling embattled with the world? But again, and I mean, hopefully it's just a temporary thing for you, For me, it was all the time. For me, it was all life was a constant battle to win. And so what that means now, yes, that brings in all kinds of issues that are going to, really throw us off and make us unhealthy, right? Because there's obviously very little room for things like compassion or gratitude or kindness or any of the things that we know are good for us, right? In terms of positive emotions and the ability to access things like optimism and resilience, right? And the genuine goodness that exists within all of us. And the ability to focus our attention, right? All of those things are very, very much impacted when we walk through our lives thinking that every single situation, every single person poses a threat to us. And whether you look at it as a threat or not, because I never felt afraid of people around me necessarily, but I looked at it as a constant battle. It was like a constant contest. And again, not only does this bring up all kinds of negative emotions and all kinds of negative mechanisms within our bodies, which are all really not good for us, very unhealthy, causing stress and anxiety and depression and all kinds of things that are going to make us less healthy. But even on a very basic level, even before we get into all that unhealthy stuff, if you see every situation as a struggle to win, well, then what you're going to do is you're going to try to get through every situation as quickly as possible. And the other thing you're going to do is you're not going to be able to see the connection between one situation and another. You're not going to see that interbeing. It's going to seem very disjointed. Everything in life is going to seem very disjointed the way it did for me. My life felt like it was just one drama and another drama with nothing happening in between, which of course is just not true. But that's how the delusion forms in our minds. And then finally, the other thing that it's not going to allow it's not going to allow for you to make connections. It's also not going to allow you to be purely authentic, which means that it's going to make you suffer 9 ways to Sunday, right? And so, as we said in the last segment, right, that we always have the choice. We, in any given moment, we have the choice to see the things that we don't like about a situation or a person or a relationship, or we can choose to see the things that are beneficial about this person, this relationship, this circumstance. And if we choose the latter, what we do is we ground ourselves into a place of well-being. And that allows us to see that life is not a battle, that life is there for us to show up and interact with beautifully, harmoniously. Even when things aren't going your way, it can still be beautiful and harmonious, I promise you. And the irony is, and the beautiful irony is, that at no point during my journey over the last 10 years where I transitioned from believing that life was nothing but a series of battles to realizing that life is just a moment-by-moment unfolding, emerging experience. Nobody in that process told me, hey, life is not a battle. Like, hey, don't look at life that way. It doesn't happen that way. It happens from the inside out, right? It happens when we stop and we really allow ourselves to feel into what's happening moment by moment. Just like the Buddha, right? As I mentioned here quite a few times on this podcast, when the Buddha was when people were trying to teach the Buddha about enlightenment, he couldn't figure it out. But when he just sat and awaited enlightenment, that's when he became the Buddha. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed these 2 segments today. Now, don't forget, I got this workshop happening on Saturday if you're interested, and I would love to see you there. All right? It is a free workshop. I do accept donations, but there's no required fee, okay? So, and that was my answer to like the discount. I was trying to figure out how to, make a discount for people who support me already. So this is it, right? You just don't pay, right? Or pay whatever you feel is appropriate. And I'll let you make that decision from a place of compassion and kindness, but also kindness and compassion to yourself, right? Without pressure from the outside. All right, everybody. I'll see you soon. I wish you well. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Take care.